Hello and welcome to our next YouTube tutorial created by Code and Create. In this video we're going to build a nice looking landing page with some animation effects. The project will be created based on HTML and CSS. We're going to use CSS keyframes. So in this video you'll be able to learn about how to create animations using just pure CSS. Okay, let's go ahead and first of all describe our project. As you can see, we have here full screen image background. And in the center of the page, we've got a couple of elements. You can see here heading, paragraph, and two different buttons. If I reload the page, then heading and paragraph will appear from the opposite directions with some fade effect. And as soon as they finish moving, buttons will be displayed in order. All of those animation effects will be created using CSS keyframes and a couple of animation properties. Alright. Let's get started. On the desktop, I've got a new folder called Animated Landing Page, in which we have two different files for HTML and for CSS, and also a folder called Images, which includes one single image for background of landing page. Okay, let's open this folder with VS Code. Inside the index.html file, I've prepared a basic structure of HTML document. You can find here two links inside head element. One for Google Fonts. I'm going to use a font called Doses, and we have another link for the CSS styles. Alright, let's run this project in the browser using a live server. If you don't use this package, then I recommend to install the live server from the extension manager. It's actually really handy and useful package. Okay. Let's go ahead and place code editor and browser side by side and start creating HTML markup. It's going to be a simple one. We're going to have just a couple of elements. So first of all, let's create div elements, which will be a container for the entire content. So let's assign to it class container. Next, we need another div element, which is going to wrap a couple of elements. Let's assign to it class name banner. And then inside the banner, create h1 heading element. Let's insert here some text. Let's say my website. Actually, I'm going to wrap the website by span element because I want to style the second word of heading in a slightly different way. Next, we need a paragraph. Let's insert here some text created by Code and Create. After that, I'm going to create a button with type button. Also, let's assign to it class name btn left. And as a text, let's insert here explore. Alright, we need the similar button as the second one, so let's duplicate this line of code. Then change the class name. We need here btn right. And also, instead of explore, let's write subscribe. Alright, that's it about HTML markup. We are ready to start styling the banner. Let's go to style.css file. At first, we will style all the elements and then we will take care of animations. Let's go ahead and create some reset styles. Select every element using asterisk. I'm going to set margin and padding as 0. And also change the font family. Let's use here font called Doses. And then sans serif. Alright, next I'm going to select container. First of all, let's define its width and height. Set width as 100%. As for height, let's use 100 VH. If you are not familiar with VH measurement unit, then it stands for viewport height. And in this case, we say that the height of container should be 100% of the viewport. After that, I'm going to set an image as a background. Let's use here linear gradient and pass here some RGBA values. First one is going to be 53, then 82, 66, and opacity 0.5. As a second RGBA value, let's pass here 47, 80, 63, and opacity 0.6. Next, I'm going to indicate path of image. We have folder called images and we have to select bg.jpg. Next, we need position of background image to be set as center. Also, we need here no repeat. And finally, I'm going to use background size property with value cover. Alright, so as you can see, the image is set as a background of the container, and now we have to start working on the banner. So let's select it using class name banner. At first, let's set its width as 100%. It means that banner will take up 100% of width of its parent element, in this case container. Now I'm going to take care of the position of the banner. I'm going to place it in the center of the page. Actually, it won't be perfect centering. I mean, I want to center it perfectly horizontally but not vertically. For that, I'm going to use some technique. Let's set its position as absolute. Then define top position as 40%. And then left as 50%. So now the banner is moved from top to bottom by 40% and from left to right by 50%. But that's not the position which we want the banner to have. We have to place it in the center. And for that, we have to use transform with translate. And we have to pass here the following values. We need minus 50%. And then again, minus 50%. So using transform translate, we moved banner from its current position by 50% to the left side and by 50% to the up side. Next thing that I want to do regarding banner is to place elements in the center inside box, and for that we have to use text align center. Okay, let's go ahead and style heading element. Select it, write banner H1. Let's increase font size. Make it 80 pixels. Then change color. I'm going to use here color DDD. Also, I want to make font a little bit lighter using font weight 300. And lastly, create some space at the bottom using margin bottom 30 pixels. Alright, as you remember, we wrapped second word of heading, I mean website, by span element. So I'm going to select it, write banner span. I want to transform text into uppercase. For that, let's use text transform uppercase. Then make it slightly bolder. Write font weight 700. And also make its color white. Write color FFF. Alright, that's it about heading. Let's give some styles to paragraph. Select it, write banner P. Let's define its font size as 50 pixels. Then make text lighter using font weight 300. Change color, make it EEE. And lastly, create some space at the bottom using margin bottom 20 pixels. Alright, so like heading, paragraph is styled as well. And now we have to take care of those two buttons. Actually, they should be almost identical. So at first, I'm going to define some common styles for buttons. Select both of them, write banner button. Define width as 180 pixels. Then create some space using padding. Assign to it 12 pixels. Next, I want to create some space around buttons. For that, let's use margin and set it as 20 pixels. Then, instead of default border, let's define custom one, write border with values 2 pixels, solid, and let's make color EEE. Also, I'm going to make buttons rounded using border radius. Let's set it as 50 pixels. Besides that, I want to increase font size. Let's make it 18 pixels. Then get rid of the default outline using outline none. Also create some space between letters. For that, let's use letter spacing with value 1 pixel. And finally, change type of cursor, make it pointer. Alright, that's it about common styles for buttons. Now I'm going to assign to each of them some individual styles. So let's select button, which is placed on the left side. It has a class name btn left. Let's change its background color. Use here color EEE. And then change color of text. I'm going to use here color 444. Actually, we need similar properties for this second button, so let's go ahead and duplicate this code. Change class name, we need here right. Then I'm going to set background color as transparent. As for color, let's use EEE. Okay, so finally, all the elements are styled, the landing page is looking good, and now it's time to create our animations. In CSS, you're able to create animations using keyframes. Inside keyframes, you can define different CSS rules on different steps of animation, and then using a couple of animation properties, you can apply those CSS rules to different elements. In order to see it in practice, let's create keyframes. For that, we need @, then keyword keyframes. It should be followed by the name of the animation. Actually, it's optional, you can call it whatever you want, and in this case I want to name it as move to left. Alright, so this part of the animation is going to be for heading. I want heading to be placed to the right side by default. Also, I want it to be hidden. In by default, I mean starting state of an element when the animation starts. Then, when we reload the page, I want it to move from right to left, and also to appear it with some fade effect. So in order to achieve that, we should define those styles inside keyframes. I mean starting state of an element and its ending state as well. In order to define styles, when the animation starts, we need to write here 0%. Also, instead of 0%, you're able to use the keyword from. So as we said, heading should be placed to the right side and it should be hidden. For that, we have to write here transform, then translate x, and as an argument, let's place here 120 pixels. And also, in order to hide an element, we need opacity 0. As for the ending point of animation, we want heading to be placed back on its old position, and also it should be visible. In order to define the ending point, we can write here keyword to. Actually, in this case, we have only 2 steps, so we are able to use those keywords, I mean from and to. But sometimes, and I think mostly, we have more than 2 steps, and then in that case, we should use percentage values. So anyway, let's change those keywords and use percentage values. Instead of from, we need 0, and instead of to, we need 100%. Then grab styles from the first step, insert here 0. As for opacity, we need 1. Alright, for now nothing is happening here, the heading is not moving, so we need something else to apply those styles to an element. We need to use some animation properties. So let's go ahead and assign to heading those properties. First one is going to be animation name. Let's assign to it name of keyframes move to left. And then we need animation duration. Let's set it as 2 seconds. So if we save, then the heading will move from left to right with some fade effect. Actually, here we have a little problem. We are getting a scroll bar down below while heading is moving. That's because by default it's placed on the right side and space on the page is not quite enough. So in order to fix that problem, we need to use overflow hidden, and we have to assign it to the container. As you can see, still and maybe unexpectedly we have the same problem here. It happens because banner has position absolute, and for now it's working according to the body element. We have to make it working according to the container. For that we have to assign to the container position relative. So now everything works perfectly. Okay, next I'm going to create keyframes for a paragraph. It's going to be similar to keyframes of heading, but in this case we need to use an opposite direction. I want the paragraph to be moved from left to right. So let's go ahead and duplicate this code. Change the name of animation. In this case I'm going to write move to right. Then instead of 120 pixels, we need here minus 120 pixels. Then go ahead and assign to paragraph properties which we used for heading. So I'm going to grab them, paste for p element, and just change the name of animation. We need here move to right. So if we save, then like heading, paragraph will move from left to right with some fade effect, and overall it will create a nice animation effect. Okay, so as a guest, now we have to work on buttons. By default I want them to be hidden, and then after displaying heading and paragraph, I want them to be appeared in order and with some fade effect. So let's create new keyframes, name it as animate btn. So in case of button, we just need to manipulate on by opacity. So on 0%, we need opacity to be 0. As for 100%, I'm going to make it 1. Alright, so keyframes are ready. Let's go ahead and assign to buttons animation properties. Let's start from btn left, define animation name, and set it as animate btn. Then as a duration, let's use 1 second. Besides those two properties, we need little delay time, because I want buttons to appear when animations of heading and paragraph are about to finish. So let's use the property animation delay and set it as 1.5 seconds. Then grab those three properties and paste them for btn right as well. For the second button, we need a little bit more delay time, so let's change its value and make it 2.3 seconds. Okay, let's save and see what will happen. As you can see, while animations of heading and paragraph are running, to be more precise, during the delay time, buttons are visible, and as soon as delay time finishes, they start animating. So we need to hide them during the delay time, and for that we have to use another property called animation fill mode, and we have to set it as backwards. So in this case we say that during the delay time, element by default will have this particular style. So in other words, during the delay time, buttons will be hidden. Let's grab this code and paste it for the second button as well. Then save, and here we go. Now everything works perfectly. We have here a nice animated landing page. Alright, actually that's it. Our project is done, and before we finish this tutorial, I want to show you one more thing regarding animation properties. As you can see, we used here several of them, and instead of doing that, we can write them in a short way. We just need to use property called animation, and then we have to assign to it name, move to left, which should be followed by duration. Let's copy this line and paste it for paragraph. Change name, we need here move to right. Let's save, and you see that everything works in the exact same way. Alright, actually I'm not going to change properties for buttons. I think you see clearly how it works, so you can do it on your own. Okay, that's it. We are done with this project. I hope you enjoyed it and learned some useful stuff. If you like this tutorial, then please thumbs up, share, comment below, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done it yet. Also, in order to get notified about every newly uploaded video, then you need to click the bell right after subscribing button. Alright, see you in the next tutorial.